Hi, in an earlier video in the BMC Helix playlist, we saw BMC Helix incident creation. In today's video, we will see the end-to-end process to initiate a request from chatbot to create incident and send the response back to the chatbot with a newly created incident number. Let us begin. I'm in Process Studio. I have created a project BMC Helix, a process BMC Helix Ticket Creation for issue. We created the BMC Helix Create Incident workflow in an earlier video, and we will create the BMC Helix Send Response to Chatbot workflow in this video. First of all, let us build the process. Search for the Start step, drag and drop the Start step, drag and drop a Workflow Executor step and one more step, search for the Success step and drag it at the end. Let us configure the first Workflow Executor step. Let us call it BMC Helix Create Incident and browse the workflow name, that is BMC Helix Create Incident, which is in the current workflow directory. In the Logging Settings tab, specify a log file, and we are going to keep appending to the log file. And let's create a log file in the same workflow directory. Let's call it Create Ticket Log. Optionally, check the Create Parent folder. The extension of the log file is txt. Optionally, include date and time in log file. And let us keep the log level to basic. Click OK. Let us configure the second workflow executor step. Let us call it BMC Helix Send Response to Chatbot. Let us browse for the workflow BMC Helix Send Response to Chatbot, which is in the current workflow directory. Let us go to the logging settings. We will specify a log file and keep appending to it and create the log file in the current workflow directory. Let's append to the same log file, and the extension is txt. Optionally include date and time. Let's keep the log level to basic. Now let us create the parameters in the process that are required for incident creation and for sending response to chatbot. The first parameter is BMC Helix credentials. Provide a description. Description can have spaces. Email credentials. Additional info to send the response back to the chatbot. The chatbot endpoint to send the response to the chatbot. The issue description, the requester's email address, the impact, urgency, the requester user's group or role, the status of the ticket, the reported source for the ticket, the service type for the ticket, and the Teams user requesting for incident creation from the chat channel. Let us provide a default value for these parameters. Before that, BMC credentials is of the type credential. Email credentials is also credential, and the others are of the type string. Now, one thing to note here is that the runtime parameter. So in our case, chatbot endpoint is runtime, additional info is runtime, Teams user is runtime, as well as the issue description is runtime and the requester email is runtime. The rest are runtime false, because we will map the additional info, or we will keep some of the things as default values. Now let us provide the default values. BMC Helix credentials. Email credentials for sending email after ticket creation. The SMTP server in parameter 1 and the SMTP port in parameter 2. Click OK. Leave the additional info null. It will come from the chatbot. In the chatbot endpoint, provide the endpoint URL. In the issue, provide the default value. In the requester email, provide your email address. In the impact, provide one extensive widespread. In the urgency, provide one critical. In the group name or role name, provide AutomationEdge team. In the status, provide new. In the reported source, provide direct input. In the service type, provide user service restoration. And in the Teams user, provide your Teams username. There is one correction. In the BMC Helix credentials parameter 1, let us provide the BMC Helix URL. Click OK. Now let us go to the BMC Helix Create Incident. This is the workflow we described in the earlier video in the BMC playlist. We had defined the parameters here. So let us go to the process. Let us click on the workflow executor step. In the parameters, let us get the parameters. Let us map them to the process parameters. Map short description to issue. In the sender address, provide the email credentials username. In the impact, select impact, urgency, the AE team. In the customer name, BMC credentials username. In the status, provide the status. In the reported source, we'll keep the reported source. In the service type, we'll keep the service type. In the base URL, BMC Helix credentials parameter 1. In the customer password, provide the BMC Helix credentials password, and in the full username, provide the team's username. Click OK. So this completes our process for now. We'll come back to it later. Now we already completed the BMC Helix create incident earlier. In this video, let us build the BMC Helix send response to chatbot. First, let us define the parameters required for the workflow. Chatbot URL, additional info, short description, sender address, AE team, success message. Now, success message was set as a variable in the BMC Helix create incident workflow. Hence, we'll be able to retrieve that variable. Error message, AE status, record number, and ticket info. We can provide a description. Note that the parameter cannot have spaces, while the description can have spaces. Click OK. Now let us go to the process again. Click on the workflow executor for the send response workflow. Click the parameters tab, get the parameters, and we can map the workflow parameters to the process parameters. In the chatbot URL, map it to the chatbot endpoint, additional info to the additional info in the process, short description to the issue, sender address to the email credentials, username, the AutomationEdge team. The success message was defined as a variable in the BMC Helix create incident workflow. Hence, it is not available in the list. So we will manually provide the value. Provide the value for the error message. Provide the value for the status. Provide the value for the record number. And in the ticket info, we will provide the mail details. We will also define mail details. Now we can go back to the child workflow. Let us search the get variables step. Drag and drop the get variable step. Double click on the get variable step. Let us get the required variables. With get variables, we fetched all the parameters we defined in the workflow. It also shows the corresponding mapping to the variables. Click OK. Now drag and drop a JavaScript step. Let us configure it. Let us call it response.json body. In this script, we will create the JSON object to send as a response to the chatbot. We will define variables for JSON body, the workflow message, the workflow status, and the AutomationEdge status. So the JSON body includes the chatbot additional information for connecting to the chatbot, the workflow name, that is create incident BMC Helix, the workflow success message, the error details field is blank, and the details of the ticket. And in case of error, it still sends the additional chatbot information, the workflow name, the overall success status, the error details along with the error message, and the ticket details is blank. Click get variables, pass these as fields in the stream, click OK. Next, drag and drop an advanced REST client step, call it send response. The HTTP request is of the type post, and we will get the URL from the field. Select the chatbot URL. In the headers tab, in the headers key, select content type is application JSON. In the request body, provide the JSON body that we created, and in the HTTP response, provide a custom field name, that is update chatbot result. Click OK. Next, drag and drop a JavaScript step to create the body of the email. Let us configure it. Write a script to create variables for all the email step configuration fields. A variable for the email subject, which includes ticket created plus the short description. A variable for the email body, which includes the ticket created successfully along with the ticket number. Variable for the sender address, SMTP server port, SMTP password, the mail status, and the message. Click get variables. Call the step mail details. Click OK. Next, drag and drop the mail step. In the destination address, provide the sender address. In the sender name, select the AE team. In the sender address, select the sender address RPA that we configured. In the server, provide the SMTP server port, use authentication, and the authentication user is the sender address RPA. authentication password and use secure authentication. In the email message, include date and send comment in the mail body. Use the HTML format, and in the subject that we defined, and in the comment, pass the body. Click OK. Next, drag and drop set workflow result step. Connect the second one to the advanced REST client step to send response. Call the set workflow result step after response. In success, select A status, which is true or false. In status, select status, which could be complete, failure, diverted, and others. In the message, select AE message. Click OK. Now, before we configure the set workflow result 2, right-click on the send response and set up error handling. In the error descriptions field name, provide update chatbot error. Connect the advanced REST client to the set workflow results with the error handling hop. Let us configure the set workflow result. Call it set failure message. In the success, which is true or false, select A status. In the status, which can be success, failure, diverted, etc., select status. In the message, select the AE message. In the attribute 1, select the short description of the issue. In the output parameters, create a parameter chatbot status, and display name is chatbot status, and the value is the error field update chatbot error. Now drag and drop 2 write to log steps. Configure the first write to log. Call it after response. In the write to log, write the text to mark a demarcation for successful end of execution, and select the fields to display in the log. Provide chatbot URL, A status, A message, status, success message, additional info, JSON body, and the record number. Let us rename the step to after response log. Click OK. Now configure the second write to log. Let us call it error response log. In the write to log, let us provide a demarcation for the log, error while sending response to chatbot. Select the fields to pass in the log. Chatbot URL, A status, status, A message, success message, error message, JSON body, and update chatbot error. This completes the workflow BMC Helix send response to chatbot. Thus, we have completed the BMC Helix ticket creation for issue process and the 2 child workflows, that is BMC Helix create ticket and BMC Helix send response to chatbot. I'm in AutomationEdge UI. I have published the workflow as BMC Helix ticket creation for knowledge article. We have a chatbot web service pre-configured to trigger this workflow. We are now ready to put a request in the chatbot. So let us go to the chatbot to initiate the request for ticket creation. I'm in chatbot. Let me begin my conversation for ticket creation. First of all, let me type my issue. You can write a short word or a sentence. Hang around while the chatbot is working. It is displaying a knowledge article. If you find it helpful, you can confirm yes, else click no. It comes up with a dialog. Would you like to create a ticket? In my case, I will click yes. Provide the issue description. Network is down. I am unable to connect to the internet. Click submit. It's working on the request. Let us check the requests on AutomationEdge. It has created a new request for the BMC Helix ticket creation for knowledge article. The workflow is complete, incident generated successfully, and in the meantime, the response has also come on the chat with the incident number and the description. Thus, we saw how we started a conversation on chatbot, which in turn understood the intent and triggered the workflow for incident creation and sending response back to client. We saw BMC Helix incident creation and response to chatbot. Thank you for watching.